Hello Matujima and watching Hornbill TV. Over the past 48 hours, a storm has erupted, not in the political arena, but in the usually quiet world of academics. The Ncert, the country's premier institution for school education, has been forced into a humiliating retreat. A brand new textbook, released just days ago, has been yanked from shelves, banned, and branded a threat to the nation's democratic fabric. The accuser? The Supreme Court of India itself. So what was in this book that sparked such fury? And more importantly, who is going to pay the price? Today, we tell you the full story of a controversy that has heads rolling from Delhi's classrooms to the highest court in the land. It began quietly enough. Picture this, February 24th, a regular day. The Ncert releases its latest revised textbook, Exploring Society, India and Beyond for Class 8 students. Now think about who these students are. They are children, 13 and 14 years old, kids who are just beginning to understand how their country works, kids who still believe what they read in books because, well, it's a textbook. But inside Chapter 4, titled The Role of the Judiciary in Our Society, the textbook authors decided to introduce these young minds to the concept of the courts in a very specific way. The chapter listed what it called the challenges faced by the Indian judicial system. And here is where it gets explosive. What were those challenges? According to the book, they included corruption at various levels, a massive backlog of cases, and an inadequate number of judges. Now, let's pause and be fair. These are issues that are debated in newspapers, in law colleges, and in parliament every single day. We are not saying these discussions do not happen, but, and this is a big but, the question the Supreme Court would soon ask is this: is a school textbook for 8th graders the right place to present these criticisms in such a stark, unvarnished way, without context, without balance? And here's the kicker, the timing. Just days before this controversy, the government had revealed that the Chief Justice's office received around 7,500 complaints against judges of the Supreme Court and High Court between 2016 and 2025. And the Ncert textbook, it became the match. The matter reached the Supreme Court on Wednesday, February 25th. Senior advocates Kapil Sibal and Abhishek Singhvi flagged the chapter. The reaction from the bench, led by Chief Justice of India Surya Kant, was instantaneous. It was explosive. The court did not just register a case. It took cognizance suo motu on its own. It means the judges were so offended they did not even wait for a formal petition. They acted immediately. And the words used for the bench? Nothing short of seismic. The Chief Justice did not call it a mistake. No, he called it a deep-rooted conspiracy against the judiciary. A conspiracy. He described it as a calculated move to undermine the institutional authority and demean the dignity of the judiciary. The message was crystal clear. This was not seen as an accident. This was seen as a deliberate attack. But why such strong words? Here's why. The CJI observed, and I quote, "It is fundamentally wrong to expose students to biased misconceptions at this tender age." He pointed out something crucial. While the chapter talked about alleged corruption, it was completely silent on the judiciary's role as the protector of the Constitution. It said nothing about its landmark judgments upholding fundamental rights. Nothing about its work for legal aid for the poor. Nothing. The bench warned that if this was left unchecked, it would erode the sanctity of the judiciary in the eyes of the public, and more importantly, in the impressionable minds of the youth. And then came the chilling phrase that echoed through every newsroom and every government office. The Chief Justice declared, "Heads must roll. There must be a deeper probe into this issue. Who are the persons behind this? We want to know. We must." Imagine being in the courtroom. The silence must have been deafening. Faced with this unprecedented judiciary fury, the Ncert and the government scrambled. damage control mode, emergency meetings, but the court was in no mood for half measures. On Thursday, February 26th, the Supreme Court passed a series of historic sweeping orders. Let me break them down for you. First, a blanket ban. The court ordered a complete and total ban on the printing, publication, and digital dissemination of the book. Second, nationwide seizure. It directed the immediate seizure of all copies, every single one, over 2.24 lakh books. The NCERT director and school principals were held personally responsible for rounding up these books. Imagine the panic in schools across the country. We have since learned that only 38 copies were actually sold before the ban. The court noted that with some relief, imagine if thousands had already reached children's hands. Third, show cause notices. In an unprecedented move, the court issued notices to the top brass, the Secretary of the Department of School Education and the NCERT Director Dr. Dinesh Prasad Saglani. They have been asked to explain why contempt of court proceedings should not be initiated against them. Contempt of court. That means jail time, fines, serious consequences. Fourth, naming the names. The court demanded that the original minutes of the meeting. It demanded the names of every member of the syllabus committee who drafted and approved this chapter. The hunt for individual accountability is on. Someone is going to be held responsible. The Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for the government, offered an unqualified and unconditional apology. And then came a revelation. He assured the court that the two individuals who prepared this chapter would never be associated with any work in any ministry again, ever. Now, as if a constitutional crisis between the government and the judiciary was not enough, this controversy has also ignited a fierce political battle. Because in India, nothing stays simple. Everything becomes politics. The Congress party has seized this opportunity. Senior Congress leader J. Ram Ramesh issued a blistering statement. He supported the Supreme Court's action, but then he went further, much further. He claimed that this wasn't an isolated incident. He said it was a part of a pattern. He called the rewriting of NCERT textbooks over the past decade disgraceful and dangerous. And then came the charge that will fuel debates for weeks. He alleged that the entire exercise has been a RSS-driven exercise full of mischief and malice. And he called for an investigation into what he termed the racket behind the curriculum changes. So now, look at the battlefield. On one front, the judiciary is defending its institutional dignity. On the other front, the opposition is using that very defense to attack the government's ideological overhaul of education. The government is caught in the middle. The NCERT is bleeding. As we go to air today, here is where things stand. The book is banned. The authors are sidelined. The top officials are staring at contempt. Notices. The NCERT has promised to rewrite the chapter in consultation with the Education Ministry for the next academic session. Now, when the dust settles on a controversy like this, it is important to look at what just happened, not through one lens, but through three. First, the perspective of the judiciary. From their point of view, an institution that is meant to uphold the Constitution saw itself being presented to children in a purely negative light. No mention of their achievements, no mention of their role as protectors of fundamental rights, just a list of challenges. For them, this was not just unfair, it was damaging to the very idea of institutional trust. And they reacted strongly to protect that trust. Second, the perspective of the government and the NCERT. They have admitted it was an error. They have apologized. They have removed the people responsible. They are now tasked with rewriting the chapter. From the point of view, this was a mistake in the drafting process, one that they have corrected and taken responsibility for. Third, the perspective of the public and the students. For parents and citizens, this incident raises a genuine question. How do we ensure that what our children read in textbooks is fair, balanced, and age-appropriate? Not hiding problems, but not exaggerating them either. Not blind praise, but not destructive criticism either. Somewhere in the middle lies the truth. So where does that leave us? The book is gone. The process has been halted. Accountability has been promised and a new chapter will be written. But the larger conversation about how we teach young minds about their country, about how much criticism is healthy and how much is harmful, that conversation is just beginning. The court's next hearing is scheduled in 4 weeks. We will be watching, we will be tracking every development and we will bring it to you. That's all we have for now. Keep watching Hornbill TV.